72A, near the top, third line, Tanarabana. Tanarabana, Yisrael Shalava Mos Min Anachri Baribis. A Jew borrows money from a non-Jew with interest. There's a coffin love b'milva, and then they consolidate that, like the loan plus the interest that has accrued so far, into a new loan, Vinis Geyer, and then he converts. Okay, so now what's the deal? Is it still considered interest? Like the new loan contains previously permitted interest, or is it still, or is it or is it not considered interest? What's in the principle of the new loan? Im kodem shenis gayer zekafin lav b'milva. So if, as we described, the new loan terms took place before his conversion, so then interest is still okay. Govus akarim govus haribis. Then you can collect the whole thing, the previous principal and the interest that had accrued. Okay, because that all took place while he was still a non-Jew. But what if he converted first and then said, you know what, all that interest I charged you before that you haven't paid yet is now part of the new loan? Well, that's no good. Govus akarim vena govus haribis. Then he's only, now that he's Jewish, he can only claim even though the terms of the loan date to before he converted. Even so, he can't be collecting interest anymore, so he can only roll over the original principal.
Sounds like a CD.
I'm sorry?
It sounds like a CD in the bank. Once you have it at 6 months or a year, then you roll over to the next
Right.
CD. But if you cash it in early, you get penalties.
Exactly. Likewise, if the Jew is the lender and the non-Jew is the borrower, Uskafin Lev B'milva, and the same thing happens. V'nisgayer, and then the borrower converts. Iman Shalom Nisgayer Uskafin Lev B'milva, if the conversion took place before the conversion, then Govus Akarim Govus Aribis. Then interest is permitted, and you can roll over the interest into the new principal. But Imishin Nisgayer Uskafin Lev B'milva, first, if he first converts and then you want to roll it over, Govus Akarim Vena Govus Aribis. Then you can't roll over the interest because you're no longer allowed to lend with interest to this person, but you can only roll over the principal. Rabbi Yossi says, non-Jew that borrows from a Jew with interest. Ben kachu ben kach govus akarim govus aribis. You can roll over both the principal and the interest. Because so the Gemara will discuss what's Rabbi Yossi's logic. Amarava in a minute. Amarava Amarav Rava. Rava says halacha Rabbi Yossi, and we rule like Rabbi Yossi. So you can do a rollover because it's already, I mean, we'll see why, but it seems to me it's like it's already it's already owing, right? The accrual date of the interest precedes the conversion. Amar of my Talmud Rabbi Yossi is what Rabbi says. What's his reasoning? Yomru b'shvil most of niskarza. So here's a different reason. We don't want to say that people say about this ger that you know why he converted, because he wanted to avoid paying interest on the debt. Right. So it's like, how am I going to get out of paying this Jew interest? I know I'll become Jewish and then he can't charge me interest anymore. Right. So in order to make that the maximum utility, like in order to maximize the value of that approach, Rabbi Yossi says you can the interest is still payable. Okay, so that people won't look down on this ger and assume that he or say that he was only in it for the money. Okay,
That hold the other way too. Does Rabbi Yossi also that the Jew borrowed from the?
Yeah, he says ben kach u ben kach, either way. Tanarabanan, Rabbi Stott, Shtar Shakasav Bo Ribis, a document, a contract that has interest in it. Konsino, so we give a knas, a penalty to the lender, and go with Los Akarim, Los Ribis. The whole document is invalid. We're not going to enforce collection of the loan at all because he included interest. Reb Meir. That's Reb Meir's view. Chachamim govus akeren v'eino govus haribos. No, we're not going to cancel the whole loan. He can still collect the principal. We're just going to ignore the part in the document in the contract about the interest. We're not going to enforce that. But my kamichlige, what's their dispute based on? Reb Meir Sava, Reb Meir, who says that you cancel the whole loan or we don't enforce the whole loan. Kansinan heter mishum isura. Sure, the loan was permitted, right? It's only the interest part of the loan of the document that is forbidden. So Reb Meir says, doesn't matter. We're going to impose this penalty even on the part that was permitted, which is the loan is the principal. Rabbanon Savari Lo Kansinan heter mishum. The rabbi says we don't do that. Okay, so that doesn't really go very deep into it. I mean, that's clearly what they're arguing about. But it has other applications as well. You can imagine there could be other applications of other documents in which part of it is enforceable and part not, or part is legal and part not. So do we just cancel the whole thing, or do we cut it, or do we look at it in pieces and say we're going to enforce the legal part and not enforce the illegal part? So not us, and we have a Mishnah. If you predate a shtarchov, an IOU, then that is not valid, right? Because what happens with the shtar? With the contract, you're putting a lien on property, right? Now, if I predate it, that means that somebody who may have bought the property, you know, before the actual loan took place, so really there's no lien. But if the document is predated, it looks like that there was a lien when the guy bought it in that middle period. So that you can't do. You can't predate anything. But you can postdate something, okay? Because then there's no jeopardy there, because if on May 1st I lend you money and put a lien on my property, and then on June 1st somebody buys that property, it doesn't matter. Like, really, the loan has already taken place and the lien is effective. If I post dated the document to August 1st, yeah, it looks like there's no lien, but nobody's going to lose out here, because the guy who bought the property, he bought a property that was actually, subject to the lien. And Gemara goes into some analysis. Why are the predated documents no good? Need logo from Mizman Rishon. Sure, you can't use them to collect from the first date, like the early date. The predated date. But Nikvu Mizman Sheni, but like. So why are you saying the whole thing is invalid? Like, why don't you just say it's only valid from the date of the actual transaction? Rav Shimon ben Lakish, machlokas shnui. It's the same argument. Rabbi Meir, it's Rabbi Meir's view. So Rabbi Meir said, as I said, there's other applications of this. Rabbi Meir's view is Kansinan heter mishum yisura. We cancel the whole document. Okay, Rabbi Yochanan says, Afilu teim rabbanan. No, you can even say the rabbis who say you can split the document and only enforce the enforceable part, the legal part, they would still agree with this Mishnah about pre and post dating. Because it looks the strength of the document is such that even though it's predated and you would ordinarily say that's fine, just enforce it from the date of the actual transaction, in practice that's not so easy to do, because there's the date on the document and people will rely on that. So in order to prevent that from happening, from the document being used improperly, we say just don't predate it, right? Put the actual date or a later date if you want, where there, as I said, there's no jeopardy.
So if it's predated, what? So you're presuming then that somebody else may have already purchased it,
Right.
and
So
you don't
we
have
do a
it, you
loan.
don't have rights to it?
We do a loan today, and we secure it with my property. I lend you money, and I say I'm securing it with my property, but let's backdate it to January 1st. Okay. Now, what I'm not telling you is that in February somebody already purchased this property, right? So when he purchased it, it's fine. And really, there's no lien on it. The purchaser is entitled to it, right? But it looks like from the document that the purchaser bought a property under lien. So that's why the predating is no good. And you can't, and so we propose to say that, well, the document should be fine, just don't enforce the lien for anything that happened before today when the transaction took place. But that's not such a good strategy because it's in the document, right? Somebody's going to try to use that document to improperly enforce the lien.
So someone else already has the property. So property's already sold
Well,
on February.
yeah, he's already purchased it, right?
So this person, the person with whom we have the loan wants to, he thinks that the lien was effective January 1 when it wasn't. The property's gone. Someone else already owns the property.
Correct. Correct. So that's why we don't predate documents. And now here's a case study.
You can post date it because nobody
Because
else
then,
says.
right, because then let's say I lend you money today and I say the property is under lien, but let's date the document August, right? Now, somebody comes along tomorrow and buys the property from me, right? Then he's buying a property that's actually under lien because I already lent you the money, right? So, so the fact that the document is incorrect, that the date on the document is incorrect, it doesn't affect the fact that the guy still bought a property that's under lien. So
The lien
he's
doesn't
got,
take effect till August 1.
no, that's not the case. The lien actually takes effect when I lend the money to the guy. I give the money to the guy and say my property is now under lien. Now, why did we post date the document? I have no idea. Okay, but what's written in, we're not saying I'm going to give you the money on August 1st. We're saying I'm giving you the money now. So the lien takes effect now. We're dating the document later for some unknown reason. I don't care why, but that date has no validity, right? The real date, the valid date is today when we do the transaction.
Even though it's dated later.
Right, but there's no consequence of it being dated later, right? Because anybody who comes along from now, tomorrow and buys the property is actually buying a property under lien. So
No,
we're not.
I hear, but couldn't he claim that the date is August 1 and
Yeah,
therefore
so presumably there would have to be witnesses that the transaction actually took place today.
right.
Yeah,
That's exactly it. There would have to be witnesses.
yeah. Okay. However, there was a person, Demashkin Le Pardes Lechavre. He borrowed money and used his pardes, his orchard, as a lien, as a security. Achot Shnei. The lender keeps the land for 3 years, and he's using it, right? It grows fruit or whatever, produces produce. Amarle, then the lender says. Mutav. Now, like, sell me the vineyard, sell me the orchard, right? Then we're good, right? Vilo, but if you're not, kavishna la lishtar mashkanta. I'm going to take this loan document. I'm going to hide it, right? I'm going to cover it up. And I've been sitting here for 3 years using it. I'm going to say I bought it, right? And what happens after 3 years? After 3 years, you've got like squatter's rights, right? You've established that it's yours. So it's like either you sell this to me for the price that I'm demanding, or I'm just going to confiscate it from you. You're not going to be able to do anything about it. Azal kam akne livin el katan. So the borrower, to get out of this pickle, he gives the gift. He gives the land as a gift to his minor son, right? And then he sold it to the lender. So in other words, he's covering up too, right? He's not telling him that he gave the land away as a gift, and now he's saying, okay, I'll accept your terms. Give me $100,000 for the land, right?
But can the Katan acquire property?
Um,
Didn't we have
yeah,
a Gemara about that earlier? That Katan Cherish and how do
yeah,
they?
we give a katan rights. The rabbis gave the katan these rights so that he could own property. Um,
Well, kind of.
We just saw that yesterday, right? That they bent the rules for there it was a case of Yisomim actually. But we mentioned that regarding shlichus, we mentioned the case of a katan, that a katan can have shlichus.
But that's not ownership. That's not,
Yeah, true.
it's not, he's not Kona, right?
Um,
We talked about a loan.
no, we're talking about transferring of property. The borrower transfers the gifts the property to his son. Um,
Still, I don't know. I mean, just seems to me, maybe it can't make, it just seems to me that we discussed this much earlier that ownership that a katan can own property. I just don't, I don't know. I didn't think so, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, usually we would say that it belongs to the father, right? That the father acquires the property of the son, but if the father is giving something to the son, maybe that's an exception. The top Rashi on the page, Islay Zachia, that's not Zachin Lakatan, Perek Mishames, that you can give property rights to a
Also,
son.
Balakiran, which Roxy is this? Let's see.
The top of 72a that we mentioned yesterday, right? Islay Zachia Midrabanan.
Tefila katan per mishamet.
Yeah, as I said yesterday, that it goes along with shlichus. Shlichus, if you have shlichus, you have agency, and if you have agency, you can own property. And this was a rabbinic takana to benefit, I think to avoid exploitation of minors. Okay, but clearly
Right.
that's what the Gemara is saying here, right? So he's given it to the son, and now he is selling it, as it were, to the lender, right? So Zavine Vade Lahav is Vine. The sale is certainly not valid because he sold something that's no longer his. Zuze, but what about the money that he took for the purchase? Kamilva Bishar Damu, is that going to be, we're going to treat that like a loan? If we go over Minachasim Mishubadim, and um, and the lender can then turn around and get that money back through lien property under lien, right? Odilma Camilva Pedamu, or is it like a verbal loan without a contract? And you can't collect from that doesn't put a lien on the property. Amar Abaye. So Abaye says, "V'lav hainu Ravasi." Isn't this the case of Ravasi? The Amar Ravasi. What's that case? If somebody admits that this is a document that he signed, there's no requirement for witnesses or any other certification of the document. If the person who's indebted in the document admits that this is a valid document, that's good enough. And it's good enough to collect from property under lien. Amalei Rava. So Rava says, so he's saying it's the same thing, right? The same thing is here that since um uh you know the, everybody knows what's going on here, then um and so and this is a document that's not certified, right? And the borrower admits that he wrote it. So this is a similar case. Um, yeah, there's a certain similarity. It's not entirely clear to me, what the analogy is. But Amalei Rava says midame. It's not really the same. Hasam nitan li kasev, hacham lo nitan li kasev. In the case of Ravasi of the Moed Bishtar, then it was okay. Like that document was a valid document, right? But here Hachal Nitali Kosev. Here it's a trick, right? The whole document where he's guaranteeing the sale, like he's doing the sale of the land, right? But he's doing it where he knows he's already no longer owns the land. The whole thing is fictitious, right? It's not like you can say anybody is admitting that something's valid. Nothing is valid here. It's a complete lie, right? So you can't apply the lesson of a document that the indebted party says, yes, this is a valid document. Nobody thinks this is a valid document. This was a lie in the first place.
But is there still a loan here? I mean, initially there
Well,
was a
we're
loan in the
treating it
past.
as a loan. Like what's the status of that money? So like the lender gave money to the borrower for the field, right? Now we know that the transaction is no good, but he's holding the money. So how does the lender get the money back, right? Can he treat it as a secured loan or not? Right? In other words, can he collect property or not?
Well, earlier we learned that at a certain point, if there are conditions, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, that he, if the conditions are set up right, if he stipulates, he can take the property, right?
Yeah, but but here we know that what are the conditions here? The conditions are they don't make sense. Like I'm paying you money for the field. That's what's written in the contract, right? But the field, but that's not really, we've discovered that was a lie, right? That you don't get the field. So how do you get the money back, right? So do you have to collect, like, badger the guy until what if he spent the money already? What if he has no money? So can you collect from his property? So it depends. If we consider this a secured loan, I mean, it's not really a loan, right? But we have to have some kind of model of how to get this money. I mean, you could say it's stolen, right? But the Gemara's not going there. Gemara says, how do you get the money back? Either it's a secured loan and you can collect property, or it's not a secured loan and you have to go after liquid assets.
It is a loan though, in the beginning.
Oh yeah, the original loan. Um, I don't think we're talking about the original loan. Wait a second. The original loan is secured by the property. You've sold the property. Back then, maybe we are talking about the original loan. Oh yeah, and the property is no longer security.
Well, if the property is the collateral for the loan, right?
Right. The property was originally the collateral for the loan. Um, so can you keep the land?
Right.
Yeah. So can you keep the land in order to, redeem that money? But the loan hasn't been repaid, right? So the land is now serving as security for both the loan and the purchase price.
Well, I don't know what the security for purchase. Once he's purchased it, he purchased it.
Yeah, but we're canceling the purchase. Now the question is, how does he get his money back? The purchase price.
There's still an outstanding loan.
Right. So he owes him both the money and both the loan and the purchase price. Right. You borrowed $100,000 from me, right? Now then we went through this exercise with the land, right? And so I'm saying, like, sell me the land, I'll give you $100,000, another $100,000. Or maybe it's the same 100,000.
I don't think
Ah,
he's giving him more. He's saying you owe me
okay,
hundred
okay,
thousand
okay,
dollars,
I see.
and you
Yeah,
sell
yeah,
me
yeah,
the
you're right.
land.
You're right.
You know,
We're talking about
basically I'm taking the land, or I'm buying the land from you. So that's
yes,
the
that's right.
purchase of the land.
Okay, okay, that makes more sense. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. That I am taking the land as a purchase because you're not giving me the money.
I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. But then we discover that the land is um but if the land was encumbered in the first place, how does he give it to his son?
That's the other side. The lender says, I'm taking the land. You haven't paid me. And the borrower says, no, I'm going to do the subterfuge to my son. And then I can't even sell it to you. So then you think you bought the land from me. Well, you really didn't, because I'm trying to beat you at your own game.
Hmm.
So I don't know where it stands after that. Then I'm
Yeah, well, that's the so that's subject to well, that's the dispute that that's the question. Is it can he collect from the land or not? Can he keep the land or not? Right? Is the money that he paid is that, which I guess is the loan, is that considered it's now no longer a um maybe it's no longer a loan, but now it's a like maybe it's no longer an encumbered loan, a secured loan. Maybe it's now an unsecured loan. That's the
I don't know.
question.
The lender, he hid the document, or he threatens to hide the document. And he says there's no loan. I'm just taking the land. But that seems that's not right either. So I just I'm not sure what's. So the other one said, okay, I'll agree to sell you the land, but I'm selling it through my son, which I don't, and I don't own the land. So then the sale is
Right. So the
go out.
money is still
So,
owing. The question is it still secured by the property, or as a result of this subterfuge going on, is it no longer secured by the property? I think that could,
but the lender's sitting on the land.
yes.
So how does the
Yeah,
borrower
well, the court going to
how
rule
does
that
how does the
he
borrower
entitled.
force the lender off the land?
Well, I guess that's what courts are for.
Yeah. Yeah. So
The
that
question is, can the court treat it as a secure loan or not anymore? Like now that the borrower still has to pay back the lender, but what is the recourse of the lender if he doesn't pay, right? Can he keep the land or not? Is it a
right.
secured loan or not anymore? Yeah. Yeah, interesting case.
Yeah.
Yossi Meramer B'Kamar Lashmat. Meramer was discussing this case. Amalei Ravina Meramer. Ravina says to him, "Eladim Rabbi Yochanan. What about what Rabbi Yochanan says? Gzera Shema Yigbem Mizman Rishon. Don't do a predated contract because we don't want, we don't want the lien holder from earlier to be improperly deprived of his property." Nema Lonita Likasev. So why don't you say that um, that a predated document is just is not valid, right? Like, why do you have to say, well, we have to worry about what if, right? Just say, look, this is the document that's dated January 1st, even though the loan hadn't taken place yet, is an improper document. Just don't try to figure out what are the possible consequences. Just say, this is an invalid document and we don't accept it. Amalei, so Meramer answers him, Achiyashta, why is that the same thing? Hasam nehi delon yitan li kasev mizman rishon, avon yitan li kasev mizman sheni. In the case of the predated document, okay, the date is wrong, but it's not like the transaction never existed, right? The transaction took place, so the date is wrong. So find a reason to say that we shouldn't accept the predating, right? That makes sense. But don't say that the whole document is invalid because it's reflecting an actual transaction. In the case of the dispute between the improper behavior of both the lender and the borrower, right? Like it was totally a subterfuge, right? That was definitely a case where the document shouldn't have been written at all because the guy had already given it to his son. A lot of the Tanya, so the more asked
No,
another
you
question.
just want in this case of the predated loan, uh, as you were mentioning before, there should be witnesses, right? Either predate or antedate who knew when the actual transaction took place. So if there
Okay.
were witnesses to the transaction, wouldn't they be there at the time the loan was written and they would not allow someone to predate or antedate it? That isn't that part of the role of the
Maybe they
witnesses?
don't see that as their job. Their job is witnessing a transaction. You want to play monkey games with the date? I mean, yeah, really, you're right. Like, why is everybody agreeing to this? I don't get it. But, um, but it's not the witness's job. Maybe they're witnessing the actual transaction. They're not signatories to the contract, right? We're not relying on the contract anymore, as you say, because like there has to be some kind of independent verification of when this took place. So that's the witnesses, right? The witnesses are just witnessing the event. Maybe they weren't party to the contract.
It just seems a little odd, though.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you there. We're definitely discussing some weird cases. I mean, why would you want to predate the document if you're not going to enforce the early date anyway, right? I don't know, tax purposes, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
how to
Elo has
turn
a
it.
fine. Ask another question. Lishvach karkos ketzad. What's how do you figure the price of improvement of the land? For example, Haresha goes Southern Mechavero. I stole a property from you. And I sold it to somebody else. Vishbicha. And that guy, he improves it, he builds on it. And now the we're gonna return the land to the guy I stole it from, right? The whole thing plays out and the property goes back. But the third guy, the buyer, he invested money in it and now he's going to lose that money, right? So does he have to be compensated for that? Kishugova, when the buyer collects compensation, goes a keren min chasim mishubadim, the principal he can collect from um, from secured, from the security, from property. Ushvach over min chasim min. But if he's getting compensation for the improvements that he made, then that money is not under lien. That can only be collected from liquid assets. So Nema Lonitan Likasev, why don't we say that, look, the whole document of the sale, the thief sold it to me, that was completely improper that he sold it. It wasn't his to steal, to sell. So Gemara says, Hachihasha, can you compare them? Hasam, in the case, um, um, yeah, Hasam, Ilaman Diamar Nichale de Nikre Gazlana, Ilaman Diamar Nichale de Lekum Behemanuse. Whether, regardless, like, why is this going back? Why is the thief owned up to his actions? Either because he doesn't want to have a reputation as a thief, or he wants to maintain his integrity. So, like, it's a positive or a negative spin on the same thing. So Matthias Leilamare, he's going to compensate the original owner and buy the field from him for full price, including the improvements, and therefore he'll validate the contract, right? So if the thief says, you know what, I took this land, I never paid you, I'm now going to pay you, right? So um, then the buyer gets to keep the property, right? Then the contract, the bill of sale for the property is now kind of reestablished. Malacha, in the case of the vineyard, the orchard, lavruche mine kamachaven, he's like, the whole point is to take it away, right? Is to improperly keep the field. So shtar makaimle. So are we gonna validate the contract, right? You can't compare the two cases because presumably the case of the thief is where the thief is trying to make amends. And so everybody's going to end up whole. But in our case, it's a dispute, right? It's like everybody's trying to take it to screw the other guy. Okay.
So how does the wait a second. So the buyer is entitled to the property that the thief stole. That's the sale is valid.
If the thief then acquires the property, pays for the property to the
Oh,
original owner, yeah,
oh, okay.
then we can say everything is right with the world again.
And
Next
the
mission.
thief doesn't have to pay kefil. We were learning this in Bava, right?
Yeah. So do you pay kefil for land?
That's the question. It's not metaltalin. So kefil, I think it's metaltalin. But how does a
Right.
person steal land? I mean, we
Yeah.
talked about land is not movable. What is he could go
Yeah.
and put barriers around the land?
Well, you can. That's a good question. How do you? Well, what's your question exactly? Like,
Well, in
how do
this
you
case,
build
how is he
houses
actually
anywhere?
stealing the
You
land?
occupy it. Maybe you have an absentee. Maybe somebody is. It's like an investment property is not there, and you kind of move in and take control of the property.
So just a squatter?
Essentially, yeah. I mean, what is a chazaka, right? A chazaka is basically squatters' rights.
Uh,
Okay, next mission. Ain posting al peros. You can't pay in advance for produce ad sheyes until there's a price for it, until there's a price that's a prevailing price, it calls it here. Yasa shar once like you don't know what like you do futures for whatever orange juice, right? You don't know what the price of orange juice is going to be until the crop report comes in, right? Until they found out how many oranges Florida and California are producing this year, and then you'll know the price of orange juice, right? But before that is known, you don't know what the price of orange juice is going to be next year, so you can't basically trade in futures. But Yasser Sharpowski, once we know the price for orange juice, then you can have a futures contract. You might be betting that the trucking industry will go on strike and nobody will be able to get orange juice or something like that. But there is since there is currently a price for this year's orange juice, you can make those bets. V'alfa pishain lazeh, yesh lazeh, because it's not a future thing. It's like the oranges have already grown, right? The fact that there's no transportation to get them to the Northeast, that's a different thing. But the oranges are there. If you could go to Florida and pick up the oranges, then you'd be good. So the oranges exist. That's why you can have a futures contract for them. What if you're like the first guy who harvests the oranges, right? So there's no price yet. Posakimo Gadish. You can have a futures contract with that first grower, um, for through the oranges that he's already harvested. So even though there's no price yet because not enough people have harvested the oranges, um, even though there's no price yet, but since he already has oranges, you can have a futures contract with that guy who has the oranges already. Vial ha'avi shel hanavim, same thing with grapes. Vial ha'matzon shel zaysim, same thing with olives. Vial ha'besim shel yotzer, or these are potter's clay balls apparently. So they're like the clay, like you've got clay and you're going to make pots out of it, so you already have the material. Vial ha'sid mishashiko bakivshon, or limestone that's already been put in the oven in the kiln. These are all similar things. I use oranges because I'm thinking of that great movie Trading Places, where it's the whole plot centers on futures contracts for oranges. Um, you can have futures contracts for manure, the whole year. You don't have to wait for a price to come out this year because that's not the kind of thing that fluctuates. There's always going to be a constant supply of manure. Rabbi Yossi Omer ein poskin al zavel. Rabbi Yossi says no. Elohim kain haisa lo zavel biyashvan. You have to actually have the a pile of dung in order to sell futures in it. But the rabbis say it's fine. Upostikima bashar hagavoa. You can have a you can. So this is if you want to anticipate that the price is going to go down, um, and you don't want to be caught with having stuff that's too expensive. Postakimo b'shara gavoa. You have to stipulate in the contract the best price, right? So. Hmm. Yeah, in other words, if you want to avoid a loss if the price goes down, you have to put that in the contract. So you have to say, I'll sell it for you for whatever, like it's not really a futures contract that, well, it is kind of, but you're saying it's variable depending on what the price is then. Okay. In
You're
other words,
selling for the highest price?
no, you're saying I'm going to buy from you these oranges, but we can't set the price now because I'm afraid, the price will go down. So I don't want to pay too much. I'm just guaranteeing you that I will buy the oranges from you, next month at whatever the prevailing price is.
But he says Shar Gavoa, which is the highest rate.
Um,
Gosekimo b'Shar Gavoa.
yeah, why is it called Shargovoa? Um, hmm. So look at Rashi.
I'm looking at that now. I'm trying to understand it. If Yechot Ashar Mimashu Achshav, it goes down.
Yeah, well,
Titen li
apparently
kishar
he's not
azol
interpreting it
shara
as
gavoa.
it's not the higher price, it's the higher amount of merchandise for the same price. It's a little, it's an odd way to to state it, but
Titen li
that's
kishar azol shara gavoa. What's that mean?
Shargavoa means the high. You think it would mean the higher price, but it could mean the higher amount of produce for the same price. So a dollar's worth of oranges could be, or like $100 worth of oranges could be 2 dozen oranges or 4 dozen oranges, right? A lower price is 4 dozen oranges, but it means for the same $100 you get more. Sorry, I'm mixing up. I'm not stating that right. A high price, uh, Shargavo could mean a high price, or it could mean a high amount of goods for the same price, meaning a lower price.
Well, what is Rashi? When Rashi said Titen li kishar azol shara gavoa. I don't understand.
1 second, let me find the Rashi.
I don't
Um,
understand that. Yeah, haynu bezol shenotnim perot arbe b'damim muatim. That's
yeah, you're putting the period in the wrong place. Rashi is like this: Im yifchos hashar mimashu achshav. If the price goes down, titain li kashar hazol. Give me, sell it to me at the lower price. Now, shar hagavoa hainu bezol shenosni bezol. So the meaning of shar gavoa really means the cheaper price. Shenosni peros harbe, because you give a lot of merchandise, bedamim muatim, for a smaller amount of money. So the gavoa means the higher amount of merchandise that you're transferring.
uh-huh.
So it's kind of twisting the words, but that's how we get it to mean the cheaper price, even though we say call it shar gavoa. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, back to the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says, Alf bishul apasakim b'shar gavoa, even though you didn't stipulate that, Yachal Omar tainli kazeh o tainli ismosai. You can always say, look, either give me back my money or give me the current price. So in other words, the futures contract doesn't have a lot of protection in it, right? If I say, I'm going to pay you $4 a dozen, and then next month, and then next month the price drops to $2 a dozen. I could say, let's cancel the contract, or like sell it to me at the current price. So it's not much of a futures contract that way. Amar Vasi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Asi said, in poskin al shar shabashuk, you can't have these futures. Amar Rav Zera Ravasi, so Rav Zera says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan afilu kadurmus hazeh. Does he mean even when there's already an established price in the market? Amalei, lo Amar Rabbi Yochanan lo b'shuk shalayaros. No, we're only talking about the regional rates, the lo kavi tar aihu, because those prices are not widespread, right? That's not really establishing a price. Establishing a fixed price takes place at the central exchange, the central market, and not the local farmers markets. Ulamanda Salik Adatin Meikar. But according to our Havamina, the Amar Rabbi Yochanan Afilu Kadormo says that Rabbi Yochanan said even a price like in the central market. Elamasnisin dekanai. What about our Mishnah? In Paskin La Peros, let's say Ashar. You can't sell these futures contracts until the price is established. Yatsa Ashar, but once there is a price poskin, Hechem Ashkachasla. Like what is the case you're talking about? The Mishnah says you can have if you have a prevailing price in your local market, even if the central market hasn't been, isn't established yet, then like what's the mission talking about? Right, according to Rabbi Yochanan. Marchus Masnisim Bechite de Achleve v'Arve. The Mashuch Tare Tve. We're talking of our mission is talking about wheat in the warehouses and the boats and the ships, because those prices are longer lasting, right? Like that's a price that doesn't fluctuate. Once you have stored grain, um, that price, sticks around for a long time. Like at that stage, there's a lot of stuff on the market, right? It's a stable supply, and the price is going to be stable for for the whole season, right? Whereas Rabbi Yochanan could have been talking about other things that are more volatile. Okay, so if they're more volatile, then you have to wait till the central market establishes a price, and then the volatility decreases. Tanarama,
So
Rabbi
the other people in this situation, I'm mistaken referring to smaller markets. Is that what he's or
um,
Rabbi
no,
Yochanan was saying?
our Mishnah is referring to more stable markets, right? Where the Mishnah says a blanket statement, you have to, like, once there's a price established, that could be even in the smaller markets, but we're talking about the Mishnah is talking about more stably priced products. Okay, and Rabbi Yochanan is talking about where you don't have that stability yet. So, in other words, everybody agrees that the price that's established has to be a stable price, but they could be talking about different situations, right? Different kinds of produce, stuff that where there's a lot on the market already, then that price is going to be stable, or where it's the kind of thing that there's a lot of fluctuation in the regional markets, but once it gets to the central market, then the price stabilizes everywhere. Then that's the condition for stability. The whole point is that the price that's established has to be a stable price in order to allow this trading of futures.
And it will, according to Rabbi Yochanan, that stability occurs in the major markets. But and
Yeah, but
The Mishnah says stability can occur even in the smaller markets.
right, and they could be agreeing, like, depends on what kind of produce we're talking about. If we're talking about stuff where, where there's a good, there's a large supply, a large stable supply, like wheat that's stored, um, like it, even if it's regionally stored, there's still a lot of it, and a good supply is guaranteed, and that price is stable. But if it's something else, then maybe you have to wait until the oranges get to their local to the markets all across the country before you can say the price is stable, something like that. In other words, they both agree, but they're talking about different situations or different types of produce.
So if it's
But the
stored,
principle is the
according to
same.
Rabbi Yochanan, would have to say it has to be, they have to be stored in something. That
Huh.
establishes stability, whether it's in small towns or big towns. Well, as long as it's stored, the ships, the warehouses,
Right, right, right.
that's the, but the Mishnah is saying that,
The Mishnah could
but
be talking about different type of produce in which that's not relevant, right? There is no such like stable supply. In order for a stable supply to be established, everything has to go through the distribution system and get to the central markets.
also the smaller markets would not be valid in general in that situation, right? Because
Right. Right, but the principle is the same. It has to be stable. Now, the stability can be established for different kinds of crops in different ways. Right? If it's wheat, then it's all stored up in silos already, and there's a good supply. If it's oranges, then I'm just making that up, but if it's oranges, then they actually have to get to their markets before you can say, yeah, the oranges are here, and we can rely on a stable price.
okay, so it may depend on the product itself.
Exactly. That's right. That's right. Tanarabana. The rabbis thought, in posting all peros, you can't have futures contracts. I'll say shar until there's established price. Yatsa shar posting. Once there is a price, then you can. Alpha p she'ain lazeh yesh lazeh, because because uh, one merchant may run out of things, and he has low stock and charges higher prices, but yesh lazeh, somebody else is going to have what you need. Hayu chadashos me'arba. If the new crop was selling for $4, the yeshanos mishalosh, an old crop was now selling for $3, right? Because it's old. Ain posking, and you can't have a futures contract. Ad sheyeseh hashar lechadash v'lo yashan, until there's one price for new and old. um, one second. Yeah, and it's the new stuff that is cheaper because it's not seasoned yet or whatever. It hasn't dried out completely. But But once it's dried out enough that they're the same price, then that's considered a stable price.
No, it says the new one is more expensive. It's 4, right?
Yeah, sorry, it's not $4. It's four pounds per dollar, right? Or
Oh,
3 pounds per dollar. Yeah. So the same way, reverse your thinking, like we had in the Mishnah.
okay.
Hayulotos me'arba, if the new stuff was selling at four 4 pounds per dollar, everybody else's was 3 pounds per dollar, and poskin, then that's not a stable price. Same thing. Amar of Nachman. Nachman says, Poskin lakotos kashar halakotos. No, you can, if there's two different markets, there's like the people, in the fields, right, that are selling stuff, the farmers markets, right, that are selling at roadside stands. If there's an established price for that already, then you can make a futures contract with those people. All right, for the price that's prevailing there. Amalei Rav Nachman, Rav says to Rav Nachman, my Shnel locate. What's the difference? Why are you allowing the roadside stand because if he runs out, then he can go and get supplied from the farm next door, right? So like a regular retailer, he can also borrow, he can also go to another farm. Like why would you say that the guys in the city have different rules than the guys in the countryside? The guys in the city can also go to the countryside and buy more. So like, why are you saying that there's two separate markets? Amalei Balabayis Zila Be Milsa Lemezaf Milaka. No, nobody. The key food is not going to go directly to a farmer. It's like we don't do that. We buy from distributors. So that's not happening. So that's why in reality there's two markets. Or you could say Man de Yav Zuze Labalabais, Apere Shapire Yav. So if you're going to an established store, like you're going to, let's not call it Q food, let's call it Balducci's, right? If you're going to Balducci's, you know you're going to get the good stuff. Whereas if you go to the roadside stand, you'll get what they have that day. You don't know necessarily. You're willing to pay a higher price to Balducci's for whatever reason. It's probably marketing, but whatever. For whatever reason, you're willing to pay a higher price there. And therefore, there really are two markets. Amar Sheshes Amar Afuna, Ein Lovin Al Shar Shabashuk. You can't borrow money with the expectation to be repaid with produce based on the price. That's like a futures contract. Um, Amalei Rav Yosef Bar Chama Rav Sheshes, where Rav Yosef says, "V'yamri la Rav Yosef Bar Abba Rav Sheshes." Someone protested to Rav Sheshes. Umiyam Rav Huna Hachi. How could Rav Huna have said that? V'bai mine Rav Huna. They asked Rav Huna, "Hanei b'nei Rav." There's these yeshiva students, the Yazvei b'Tishrei. They borrow money in Tishrei, right, when they have to pay tuition. Upari b'Teves, and they pay back with stuff that they harvest in Teves. Right? They pay back the money they bought. So this sounds exactly like the case. Shari Aser. So they asked him, is this allowed or not? Amalahu, hachite behine v'hachite b'shile. It's like, wheat is wheat. You can buy it in Hini, you can buy it in Shili, in places. He buys Avni Parlay. If they want, they can go buy it and pay back their debt, right? So he's allowing this futures-based loan, whereas we just said that Rav Huna says he doesn't allow it. So the Gemara says Meikar Savar Rav Huna Ein Lovi. So what happened was first he thought you can't do that. Kevin Deshama Lahad Yamar Rav Shmuel Barchim Rav Lazar. But once he heard what Rav Shmuel said, then that loving that you can't do it. Amar you nami loving. Okay, he says, yeah, I'll agree with him. In other words, he wasn't so. Yes, he did have a different opinion. He changed his mind and said that it is allowed to do that. Okay, I think we can stop here.
So, but they're borrowing food. They're not borrowing money, right?
Right, but it's the same. No, they're borrowing money and promising to pay it back with food.
I don't know if that's the case. I think that they may be borrowing food.
Um, let's see what it said. Loving al shar shabashuk. See what Rashi says. Yeah, look at the second last line of Rashi. Yasve b'tishrei mos. They borrowed in Tishrei. They borrowed money. Upare peros b'teves, and they pay back with produce in Teves. Kishar shel Tishrei.
Uh, pay back.
According to whatever the price was at the time of the loan.
They're borrowing with money and they're paying back in produce. Kashar shel
Yeah.
Tishrei. But didn't we had a long discussion about the the value of produce when this is a week, 2 weeks ago, where during Yontif, I think, when if the price of the produce changes, let's say, then you're not getting the price on the market of the grapes, the whatever it is, it goes up, goes down. And if we exchange just the Mishnah, when he wanted to exchange wheat for wine, and if the wine went up and it's not the same. So here they want to pay back in produce 6 months later, and maybe the price of the produce has changed. That the market price of the produce has changed. So how are they?
Well, then that's like a futures contract, right? Like you're buying what based on the price today, and you're taking a gamble on what the price is going to be later.
But if they're borrowing money, say, but they borrow $10,000, and
Well,
now
what's the difference if it's a loan or I pay you, like, or if it's a purchase? Well, there wouldn't be any difference, right? You're taking money today, either as a loan or as a purchase price, based on what you think the price is going to be later.
I think there's a difference. If he borrows $10,000, he has to pay back. Says, I'm going to give you back, like the case earlier, wheat versus wine. I don't have the wheat. I'll give you the wine. So now the price goes down. So he gives him back what is uh wine for, and wine now is not worth the $10,000. I'm going to give you 6 barrels of wine back today, maybe 10,000. In 6 months, it may be worth 4,000. I mean,
Mhm.
so he hasn't returned the
So
back.
you're saying the previous Mishnah from previously says that you can do futures? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I don't remember that Mishnah because I was I wasn't keeping up during the during while I was away.
But I mean, it's the concept was that if the price of a commodity goes up or down, and there's a change in,
Right.
then
So this Mishnah is saying, like, our in general, our Mishnah is saying that that's only valid to do that once there's a stable price. That's the principle here.
oh, so you were assuming now this price isn't going to change for 6 months.
Right. Or there's reason to believe, or it's, that ordinarily it wouldn't change. Now, obviously, it does. Things can happen, right? But the what it seems to be based on is in our Mishnah, it's based on, does this stuff exist already, right? You can't set a price when things haven't been harvested yet. Once things have been harvested, or have sufficiently come along, into the marketplace, then they are real things, and then you can gamble on whether the price will go up or down. But if they don't exist yet in that sense, then you can't. We don't allow that gamble.
Well, that was part of a discussion earlier again a few weeks ago, where if there's wine in the market, the whole discussion. I forgot who were
Okay.
the
Well, I
complaint
know. I
anyway.
don't. Like I said, I wasn't.
I know, I understand it, but
Yeah.
that if it did exist, then someone could presumably find it, get it from a neighbor, get it from another person. So that wasn't very important. That was an important point. But if it didn't exist, it's a whole discussion of the Devar Shaloba Olam. So
Yeah.
that's relevant. It could be relevant here as well.
I think it's related. I'm not sure how exact the analogy is, but I think it's. I think you're correct that it's related.
All right.
Okay, got to call it for today.
Okay. Very
Have
good.
a good
Let's go
Shabbos.
off. Okay. Good Shabbos.